Welcome back to Between Two Racks with the Kilo Crew. On today's episode, we're going to discuss our 2025 education schedule. So, let's kick it. To get this episode started, I wanted to read a quote that I have now on our website because I think it applies so well to what we provide to our students for education. And it's a James Clear quote in the book Atomic Habits. He says, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." So we are known for our program design and periodization systems. Some people talk shit about systems because they don't understand what a system truly does for coaches. And in my opinion, it's something where writing programs is all over the place and people can get very lost when they're dealing with their clients. But when you have systems in place, you can, one, be more efficient with your work. You can handle more clients. You can have a better, more successful business. You can avoid certain errors or failures in your programming. But it provides you the level of knowledge to know how to handle any clients that are coming to you. So whether it's strength goals, body composition goals, athletic goals, all of our education covers whatever someone may need with their clients. And then regarding that, we have an extremely comprehensive curriculum where I don't think people really realize the structure that we've built out in our education. So within our curriculum, we have different specialties. So on today's episode, I kind of wanted to work through the flow of our specialties. The one specialty we have that does not include any live education is the foundation specialty. Within the foundation specialty, we have the level 1 bundle, so the online program design, online periodization, and online optimizing strength ratios course. I don't want to talk a lot about online education today. I do want to focus on the live seminars for 2025, but none of our courses require prerequisites. However, they are strongly encouraged. So if you do plan on attending a Kilo seminar, you don't have to, but as many of our students will tell you, it provides a lot having that base level of knowledge before coming to a live seminar. So moving on from foundation, we have strength preparation. And under the strength preparation bundle, we have the PAB seminar, Progressive Anatomical Adaptation Blocks. This will be the 4th occurrence ever of this course specifically. Every time we've had this course so far, it has been sold out. So to get us started, Steph, I'll kind of have you discuss PAB.
Yeah, so PAB, basically the premise of that course is it's a strength preparation course. So we're laying down the foundation to leverage your strength response once you move on to more standard strength training parameters. So this is good for anyone who has technical issues with some of the primary lifts, so the big multi-joint compound movements that we're doing in our A series. So if you have lack of efficiency or lack of range of motion to attain a proper technique on these lifts, this will be very helpful. But also, it's great for like the introduction to training with a novice client. So if you have zero training background, what's great about PAB, so progressive anatomical adaptation, so Tudor Bonpot defines anatomical adaptation as changes, like structural changes in the anatomy of the human body. So this will be good at increasing or improving tendon, connective tissue health around all the joints. It will lay the foundation for more resilient joints for heavy loading that will come up in the future. You'll build a base of hypertrophy, which will leverage strength in the future as well. And as we're doing these training modalities, we're going to focus on each joint individually to make sure that we're maximizing the range of motion at the key joints involved in these primary movements. So we're going to look at the shoulder joint mostly for the upper body, and the hip and ankle joint for the lower body, as well as the knee. So the way the course is structured, we're going to look at like very general, the periodization model involved with PAB, where it's very block dominant. So block is a substructure of a macrocycle, and a block typically has 2 mesocycles. So the way we program a block is typically 6 weeks, and each block has a very defined bias to promote a very specific goals in terms of range of motion or tissue resiliency. So we're basically in the periodization of PAB, we're trying to optimize the timing of blocks within a macrocycle to influence the response of your training program towards better movement proficiency. So the microcycle structure will differ from what you've learned in the online program design course, because we're really favoring agonist-antagonist balance. The periodization model will change as well, and the training parameters will also be very different than the online program design course, because the outcome that we're looking for with PAB is somewhat different as well. So there's a lot of different elements on how the program design layout is with PAB as opposed to strength. And then in terms of exercise selection, we're literally going over each joint, like. And let's say the shoulder joint, we're actually going to look at shoulder flexion, shoulder abduction, horizontal abduction, horizontal adduction. So everything is very detailed, and on each joint, we have different priorities. So do we have a priority more on range of motion? Do we have a priority more on general strength development? Are we overloading the entire resistance curve? Are we overloading certain points of the strength curve that are more like end range or bottom range? And then on top of it, we also have progressions of certain motor pattern leading towards peak performance in the context of PAB programming. So it's a very thorough course that is great for the novice, but also great for the advanced lifter that either needs to step away from heavy loading for a little bit as a form of active recovery, or a advanced lifter that has developed certain issues or certain limitations that could be addressed specifically through a different training modality.
And it goes back to, again, our curriculum fitting so well together, because, as you mentioned, it's quite different of a structure than the program design course, but it's a missing piece for a lot of people, where they get these clients who can't squat, who can't do an overhead press. So then they're looking at the online program design content and they're like, well, what do I do in this instant? Or how do I get my clients to be able to do those movements? And then that's really where PAB comes into play. And I think for a lot of our listeners who come from more of like the structural balance background, this is more of how we view that type of training. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you marry that course with the movement and movement analysis and progression online course, then you're optimizing the process even more, because you have a starting point that's very defined and very individualized to your client.
Yeah. Like the problem, especially with personal trainers, is most people have really, really shitty movement patterns. So, like, obviously, our program design course is a very generalist course that is best case scenario, but the fact of the matter is,
it doesn't happen very often.
No, like at minimum, 30% of your clients aren't going to have the movement pattern proficiency to just go straight into that. At minimum, it's probably going to be more.
But you want them to have it.
But you want them to get there. So if you want them to get there, you need a systematic, structured way of trying to improve these movement patterns. And what PAB does such a great job of is systematically working on somewhat of a joint by joint movement efficiency to really improve these movement patterns, and in a very progressive manner. So like all the progressions are laid out. It's malleable, so you can change the structure of the training for 4 times a week, 3 times a week, 2 times a week. It all makes sure it fits within the hour-long session. Like it's all so well structured that you can manipulate to any client to try and get them to the point of just doing normal strength training where they're going to have their best results.
Yeah. And one thing we are very excited about for 2025 is we are introducing a nutrition and supplementation component to every seminar we think is applicable. So regarding PAB, Alex?
Well, so if you think of someone who's doing PAB, maybe they're post-rehab or they're just introduction, a novice client who's never done it, inflammation will have a big impact on their movement quality. So is it because they're coming back from an injury, or that they're so inflamed that all the joints and the muscles and everything just doesn't work so well? So the focus will just definitely be on like anti-inflammatory diet, even supplements, like what supplements are best. Like, there's so many, like, what do you take? Do you take curcumin? Do you take fish oil? Do you, all those things. And also, I mean, because depending on what level they're at, maybe they need to like cut back on their calories a little bit, because they won't be, doing heavy squats and all those things. So it's like all the manipulations that you can do to really optimize the results that you'll get with those clients.
So that is the PAB seminar. Personally, for me, I think it's one of those seminars, like I mentioned, is a missing link for a lot of people that have done a lot of education with us, because they don't know what to do when they're faced with clients who can't do the primate movements. And that one really covers the bases. And I do want to reinforce the fact that it's not just for people, beginners, introductory people, or people dealing with injuries. Because Steph, I know you've used PAB with Porrick. I know you've used PAB with me, with Alex. So it's just having the tools and then seeing the bigger picture of things and when to apply it properly with clients. Yeah,
I mean, with more advanced clients, you can almost look at a PAB in general, or even just as small as a PAB block per se, as a transition phase following a heavy or intensive months of training, because it's a good form of deload. And at the same time, you're emphasizing limiting factors or areas that could benefit from more targeted work. So to me, like, anybody can benefit from PAB. And also, what's very important to consider, going back to the novice or Gen Pop in general that struggles with motor patterns, is we understand with this course the reality of what a professional trainer in the world of fitness has to deal with. And what I'm talking about is the constraint of 60-minute sessions and 2 to 4 training sessions per week. So PAB basically is, how can you improve or maximize motor pattern efficiency with clients when you're confined to these 2 to 4 sessions of 60 minutes per week, when they're initially coming to you in the first place for changes in either body composition or strength. So how can we marry all this together to really drive these results without needing to spend hours and hours and hours on stretching or just like very basic rehab training modalities?
Regarding the 2025 release, it is our biggest live education release since we started Kilo in 2016. So the majority of every live course has 3 occurrences on our schedule. Normally 2 was our max, but now we've just noticed that we have students that once they come to a course, they want to keep coming back for more. So we changed up the layout of our schedule to help our students. So it's no longer kind of block scheduling. We've spread them out through the entire year. So if you're coming in Q1, you can return in Q3 for another course. And then again, going back to, we'll go over everything, but we do have a lot of new education for our schedule for 2025, which carries on to the next specialty, the advanced strength specialty. So next year for the advanced strength specialty, we're introducing 2 new live seminars. Both of these seminars are 1 day only. So it is the Comprehensive Periodization Seminar and the Comprehensive Program Design Seminar. So the Comprehensive Periodization is the course we just held in Amsterdam, but we will be holding one at Kilo next year. Since these are only 1 day seminars, there's no practical component. We will open up the gym because a lot of people come here and still want to train in the facility. So it'll be in the morning or at lunch break. You'll still have the opportunity to get a workout in. But it will just be 9 to 5 content. So with that, we do have the ability to host a larger amount of students. So I think it is going to be a jam-packed house in May for the comprehensive weekend. So first, we'll discuss the Saturday, the first course of the weekend, the Comprehensive Periodization Seminar.
Yeah, to me, this course is really, really exciting because I'm sure you guys know how much I like periodization. And the content of this course really goes way above the online periodization course. We're going to discuss periodization models and periodization topics that we've been using for years, but you guys have never really heard us talk about. So it should be really interesting. It's very dense. So like the first module of the course is theory of periodization. So all the different aspects of periodization, from the annual structures, the annual goal, macrocycle structure, macrocycle goals. We're going to cover the different block loading factors, the macrocycle factors, mesocycle loading, mesocycle volume and intensity, session loading, session structures. There's a bunch of different layout in terms of session structures, how we load specific exercises. So all the minutia of the building blocks of your periodization program will be discussed in the theory module. And then we have 3 more modules that covers specific periodization models that we like. So the first one we're going to talk about is the linear periodization model, which is a offshoot of the traditional model from Matveyev, which we like to use with the novice or even certain intermediate or advanced clients, depending on how it fits in the bigger picture of their training. It can still be done, but it's mostly very useful for the novice as the client is trying to learn how they respond to certain loads, how they respond to certain volume load as well. So it's more of a slow progress towards their knowledge of their true RM. So it makes it way more applicable for that clientele instead of the high intensity jumps that we see with undulating periodization that sometimes clients figure out their load by the time it's time to switch phases. So there's a lot of missed opportunities. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the macro cycle structure, the year structure, and mesocycle loading as well for each and every one of these modules. The third module will cover undulating periodization, which is our go-to. But we're going to go deeper with the undulating periodization. Of course, we're going to cover the classic undulating periodization, which is phase periodization, which is basically what you guys know from us, but through the application of different block structure as well, and block loading structure, which will be like new information for you guys. And then we're going to cover weekly undulating periodization, which is a more advanced form of undulating periodization, and then daily undulating periodization, which has even more built-in variation, which will be more beneficial to your clients that are really have a much higher training age in the world of strength training. And then finally, we're going to cover in the last module wave periodization, which to me, this periodization model is interesting because it's not really in the literature, but it is something that I've been doing for a long time and I really like it. That being said, I still saw like Mike Stone and William Kramer discussed the term of wave periodization, and even Dan Baker, I think.
Yep.
But it's never really been studied in the literature per se. So what you guys are going to see with this is our interpretation of wave periodization. And what is cool about wave periodization is for your advanced intermediate or your advanced client, it allows you to focus on a targeted goal, but in a much more precise fashion, simply because you're fully gorging yourself with a very specific targeted intensity range to reach your goal. So it's a little harder on a training perspective because you're truly saturating a quality, but the outcome of it can actually be higher because of that. But the important part is how you're manipulating volume load and the interactions between the volume and intensities across the two training blocks within the macro cycle. So we're going to discuss all of this. Again, it's one day, just theory, so it will be jam-packed. And of course, if you've done the online periodization course prior to, it's going to be way easier for you to at least understand the lingo that we're utilizing in the course.
Because it won't be one of those situations where we can really slow down and be like, hold up, let me break down what you're not following. Like, I would just recommend the online periodization is $349 to grab it. Like, you're able to so much better absorb the content of the course if you come prepared. So I'm sure plenty of people will have completed the periodization, but even with the Amsterdam course, I kept on them. I'm like, refresh on the content. You might have done it 3-4 years ago, but get into it now right before the course. I think that the comprehensive periodization and program design together is going to be like another instance of when we first started ASPD, Advanced Strategies to Program Design, and people were
like, whoa.
It just opened up so many doors.
Yeah, what I love about this course is that we go right from novice right through to the most advanced you could really need for general strength training purposes. And there's going to be so many answers and so many easy applicable outcomes due to that. But then, so obviously the novice one's going to be, it's not going to be straightforward in terms of, like, there's still a lot of thought process behind the system, but it's going to be very easily applied to all their clients. Whereas one of my biggest learning outcomes in the last few years has been the management of volume load. And that's, you'll really see how important that becomes with the more advanced models that we're going to be showing you, and how we like to manipulate it to really either manage fatigue or in certain cases like push fatigue for nearly an overreaching effect. So it's these nuances will really let you push your periodization models to really push your results a lot further with your clients. Like, this is a really cool one. It's going to be so much information for one day, but that's what you want.
Yeah. Bring your thinking cap.
Yeah.
And what's cool too is it's like for those of you guys who like to apply our system of program design, is it will allow you to create further variations in your client's programming while still fitting in the confine of the whole kilo infrastructure of microcycles and training goals and all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting in that sense as well.
And then leading into the Comprehensive Program Design Seminar. So this seminar is May 17th and 18th. You are welcome to just attend one. I'm not really sure why you do that, but you can purchase them bundled together. So we have the periodization on the Saturday because, as you always like to say, it's easier to kind of understand the structure of the periodization before diving into the program design. So the Comprehensive Program Design Seminar will be the Sunday. Yeah,
you need to look at programming like a funnel, because anyone, like, I mean, at least this is how you should be writing your programs. You first need to think of the bigger picture. What is the overarching goal we're trying to accomplish with time frame X? And then from then on, you go down that funnel all the way down to the training week, the microcycle, and then even more specifically to the session itself. So the program design aspect, we're going to deal way more with the microcycle and the training session. So as you can see, it's hard to dissociate both, right? Like the periodization is the bigger picture, but a program without periodization is useless, and periodization without a program is also useless. So both needs to coincide and be done together accordingly. But the comprehensive program design, now we're going to dig deeper into how we can leverage all the different periodization model to optimize results with different people by having different microcycle layout. For example, in the online program design course, the student was presented only 2 different microcycle structure. You had microcycle 1, you had microcycle 2. Why? Because they're the foundational microcycles, and they're what most people should start doing. Then you progress in the foundation, you get the optimizing strength ratio course. Now all of a sudden you have 12 different microcycle structure. But that's not it. The comprehensive program design course, you will actually see 96 different microcycle structures.
All I can think of is Tommy. Now is going to be like, whoa.
Yeah, but that's what it is. So, but think about it though in a program design perspective for your client. Now you opened up the Pandora's box to so much more variation in your training. Yeah. 96 different ways that you can present your training week with your client.
We do provide notes in all of our seminars.
But it's important to understand that we're not laying out 96 different microcycle structure just to be cool. It's because each and every one of these maximizes a very specific goal that you might have with your training week. So depending on that goal, you have a different structure. And then I mean, if we throw in the weekly and daily undulating periodization model with the uncoupling microcycle and couple microcycle, well, then it's even more. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, so we're going to dig deeper into this, and then of course we're going to talk about exercise selection, which is something that it's very, very. We did a very good attempt, in my opinion, in the optimizing strength ratio, but it's much easier to teach exercise selection in a live course environment because you have the live feedback,
the interaction
of the students, the interaction. Yep. So you can create better context whenever you're talking about exercise selection. But which type of exercise should be chosen for specific goals. And of course, the main goals we're going to talk about will be hypertrophy, absolute strength, relative strength, and power, which is basically the core of standard strength training. So we're going to discuss all of this, talk about the parameters involved with these training sessions. So the sets, reps, tempo, and rest periods. Anyway, it's going to be really, really good, really, really interesting because it's going to be deep. But what's good is it's going to match and fit and work very well in conjunction with the Comprehensive Periodization Seminar. So that's why they're under the advanced strength bubble, right? So you've done the foundation, you've applied the foundation. Now we're going to leverage this even more. And then, before I forget, the most important part of the comprehensive program design course in terms of exercise selection will be the fact that now we're going to expand the strength ratio analysis to not only the primary that we do in optimizing strength ratio, but we're going to look at the strength ratios of assistance and remedial exercise to better target your training response and to have an even more individualized programming for your client. So it's going to be very thorough, very cool.
One of my pet peeves during case studies is when students write press, triceps,
or just
bicep.
Or just triceps.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So exercise selection is such a huge part of getting good results. And yes, it can be a very hard thing to put into a structure, but just with the application of the strength ratios in the assistance and the remedial exercises, that alone is going to give all the students like some level of indication of where to put a little more focus on what is going to help drive results. So at least that's the first step of, all right, so we see that these are limiting. So we're going to try and drive strength here, or we're going to try and drive hypertrophy here. So that is the first step towards better exercise selection. Mm-hmm. And then when we go further down the rabbit hole, so to say, with what's going to be most applicable for strength, hypertrophy, relative strength and all that there, it's really going to give the students a better outlook to the thought process we try and put into all our exercise selection and long-term thought process into programming. So I think that's going to be a huge element to this course. Yeah. Huge.
Because I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, honestly, and if you were to ask any top level like strength expert across the entire planet, the number one, probably most important parameter of all is exercise selection. Exercise selection is more important than anything else. So it's very important, in my opinion, to have a thorough discussion about exercise selection if you truly want to optimize your programming.
Yeah, and it's so nuanced depending on what the goal is. So
what the client can do, like all those things, yeah.
And that becomes almost impossible to teach on one of like our online courses, and that's why like a live seminar like this, I think, will be one of those things where the light bulbs go off for a lot of students.
And people have to realize like there's no one correct answer.
Yeah.
There's a correct thought process, but there's not a correct answer. So like, don't be afraid to have your thought process, and whatever exercise that leads you to, put it out there. But because there could be 20 correct answers for all we care, but it's just what was the thought process to get you there, and will that make sense on a long-term perspective?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because in terms of, we call what we do systems, but it's almost, it provides a thought process. Yeah. So let me go through X, Y, Z to get the outcome. So it's just providing like a guidance to a thought process.
But that's what systems are.
Yeah.
Systems are processes.
Frameworks. Yeah.
But then people confuse that sometimes with like cookie cutter, right?
Yeah.
And
Rules.
it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You still have to think about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Moving on to the next specialty. So this is always a specialty that all trainers and coaches are extremely interested in, because obviously it's a number one goal for the majority of personal training clients that people get, and that is the body composition specialty. So since we started in 2016, we've had the body composition training camp was the first in the hypertrophy training camp. Then it became the fat loss intensive and the hypertrophy intensive. And along all the years, we added online courses. So we have our online hypertrophy program design course. We have our online fat loss program design course. So now a lot more information is out there that we provide, not in live seminars. But what we began to notice after all the years of doing our education is there is a new goal that we found to, we want to provide education for our students, and that is what is the new body composition seminar. So for those of you who have done all the previous body composition courses, this is a new course, new content across the board, new structures, new way to handle body composition. And I have already gotten a decent amount of emails from a lot of our diehard Kilo students asking, like, how is it different? And what I always like to say is, this is what we'd want to do in our training for body composition. It's not
it's not your newbie client coming in,
or like someone that you have you're just ready to slam and they just want to lose fat or gain muscle. It's about fat loss and hypertrophy goals, but keeping in mind strength. So we still want to maintain strength while we're driving fat loss and hypertrophy.
Yeah, so basically to go along with what you were saying, the fat loss and hypertrophy online courses, you almost need to look at these as the extremes and the short-term goal courses. Where now the body comp course, we're going to discuss about body composition in general, which means improving body fat, so decreasing fat mass, and improving muscle mass or increasing muscle mass. Now, we know that as people get older, there's a huge drop in muscle mass. So maintaining muscle mass is an important thing. So if you have a long-term goal of decreasing fat mass, it's a very long-term goal of yours, but you don't want to decrease hypertrophy. You want to maintain that hypertrophy. So it's a good thing to be able to understand how we can optimize body composition in general without jeopardizing either hypertrophy or strength as you're focusing on fat loss, and vice versa. So basically, this approach will be heavily reliant on nutrition, heavily reliant on different periodization model that will allow us to have a taste, if you want, of regular strength training to maintain the acquisition in terms of neural facilitation for strength. And then we're going to dive into more metabolic pathways to either promote fat loss to a greater extent or promote hypertrophy to a greater extent, but always more in the confines of looking at your improvement in overall body composition on a longer time frame. So in terms of the course content, obviously we're going to look at periodization models. We're going to look at program design specificities, so like exercise selection. Exercise selection will have a huge impact on biasing one goal or the other. And exercise selection will also have a huge impact on managing fatigue, because at the end of the day, body composition type training modalities tend to have a higher volume load. And volume load is what basically creates the most fatigue. So we need to be very clever on how we're managing fatigue, especially in conjunction with the nutrition, to be able to optimize our results. So it will be very, very different in the approach than the online courses because of that long-term component that we're trying to implement to make sure that we're maintaining our acquisition. So that's why when you were saying that this is the type of training that we would like to do, us personally, that's simply because we have a high training age. We spent a lot of time building our foundation of muscle mass and our foundation of strength. And the problem is people with a higher training age, if they undergo an intensive 12-week fat loss program, for example, yes, we will lose a ton of fat because it's going to be a completely novel stimulus that's going to create a lot of metabolic disturbances. But unfortunately, we will lose a decent amount of strength. So if you're dealing with clients that do not want that, then that course will be highly beneficial for you.
And it's not even clients that don't want it, but it's knowing when you don't want to do that to your clients who have that foundation of muscle mass and strength and maybe want to drive a little bit more hypertrophy or fat loss, but considering, okay, let's not do this because that's not the right instance for it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? So if you're dealing with more of a novice Gen Pop client that is, let's say, 30% body fat, that wants to get down to 16% body fat in 12 weeks or whatever it might be. Well, the thing is, the client is so novice that even if we're doing this type of fat loss training modality, the truth is they will actually put on some muscle because of the novelty of the stimulus of strength training in general. But the person with a higher training age, it won't really happen because it's too far away from what's needed in terms of tension on the muscle to generate a hypertrophy response or even more so a strength response.
Yeah. Well, this part with this course, the nutrition is definitely going to be fun because, your average client or novice client, you just basically, decrease the calories and hope
teach them smart nutrition,
like just the basics. But with this, like you already have someone who's more advanced, who's more committed to their training. We can really start to manipulate like the nutrition and then match the nutrition to like the system or whatever that they're working at the time. So it'll require a little bit more work in terms of nutrition, like where tracking, there's pros and cons of tracking, but like in this system, you'll definitely need to know, and you have to be able to expect that from your client. There's basic lifestyle factors that we can also talk about, like we'll talk about in the nutrition part. But even with the supplements will be fun too, like just playing with the supplements, making sure that people are fueling for their workouts so that
the specific workout, because in this you might see different workouts within a mesocycle.
Right, in the same week. So it'll be really fun to play and teach and come up with a system that matches, like a nutrition system that's going to match what we're doing in the gym.
Yeah, that's what's going to be really cool about this course is the nutrition aspect of this course will actually be based off of periodization of nutrition, which will match the periodization of the strength programming. And what's kind of cool is, believe it or not, guys, but the concept of periodization of nutrition only came out in the literature in 2004.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it happened before, obviously, bodybuilders back in the days did it instinctively, but in the literature, it's only a 20-year-old science. And now we're bringing that concept of periodization of nutrition to match the peculiarities of that training model involved with our body comp system. So it will be really interesting.
Yeah. But what's really cool about this course is, we've said, this is the way we would want to handle it for ourselves, but clients are also going to love this because there's more variety. There's more drastic changes in workout to workout structures, so that they are going to find it more, I hate to use the word entertaining, but entertaining long term. Yeah. So with the classic way that we taught hypertrophy and fat loss in the online courses, it works, but it's brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal. So the client, if you get the client to sign up for 12 weeks of that and they get through it, they might get great results, but you still mightn't see them again because they're his training or her training really, really works, but it's hardcore. It's not sustainable long term. Whereas this is going to work so well for your long term clients who just love to train and just want to bias certain factors, certain outcomes. So I think all the coaches are going to see really, really high retention rates when they implement this style of training, because they're going to get great results. The clients are going to love it. They're going to continue to get stronger. They're going to continue to put on muscle. They're going to feel great because we're managing volume load way more intelligently.
Yeah.
I don't intelligently is wrong, because the other one, we're managing volume load, but we're saturating it because we want to maximize the outcome. Whereas this year, it's just such a more sustainable way of training. And we all know it's easier to keep a client than it is to gain a new client. So long-term retention is a huge aspect of your personal training business. And this is really going to help it.
And it also fits the reality of life as a personal trainer dealing with clients, because the problem with a lot of personal training clients is they skip weeks, they go on vacation, they stay at home with the kids during the summer. So then you find yourself in a situation where basically year round the goal becomes fat loss. Whereas the other courses, it's more like you're training normally, then you're saturating fat loss for a specific period of time to achieve a goal, and then you go back to strength. But when you're dealing with clients who are on and off all the time, then maybe you're stuck in a world where it's fat loss all the time. But fat loss all the time with the online course systems becomes it's impossible, because these programs are too demanding.
Yeah.
So I think the Body Comp Live course will definitely be super helpful for those of you dealing with these clients.
And going back to the introduction of nutrition into our education, it's been something people have asked us for so long. And, we always looked at it as we were focusing so heavily on becoming the program design and periodization. That's our niche. That's what we found was missing in our industry. And that's what we want to provide to our students. But now looking back, we started in 2016, it's 2024, and nutrition is a shit show in our industry right now in terms of just there being, as myself, I'm a trainee, I'm a client. It's massively overwhelming. I think that I need to do one thing one week, another thing the next week. I need to be super anal. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. So in terms of us wanting to now introduce nutrition into our education, it's like, okay, let's teach people what they can actually implement with their clients and have their clients follow. And something that's, again, providing somewhat of a system. So you're not just have all this information that you then can't apply with your students, because nutrition, it's extremely individualized. Mm-hmm. It is. It's different for everyone. We'll still always encourage people to get blood work done to really find, and it is a little bit of playing around, testing it out for the individual to see what works. But man, there are great companies out there providing education on nutrition, but we want to provide something that a personal trainer can understand and apply within the context of what we provide within our training education.
I think the problem, like just attesting to what you're saying, is like people want to be in camps. They want to be like, I'm carnivore, I'm vegan, I'm this,
keto,
like there's all these things, but like we should be omnivores in terms, even in the way we eat, but the way we plan our nutrition. Like you have to figure out what works for you, what situation you can manipulate, whatever for for the goal that you have at the time. But it's really important to just like get rid of the noise and then just, focus on just some of the basics that can work.
It makes me, I know I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it, but it is almost one of those things where I see down the line introducing like a online foundation nutrition course that kind of like our online program design. So you have what we believe to be the foundation of it without getting so inundated with so many different things, and just having something that you can apply and understand that works. Okay, moving on from body composition to our final specialty, sports performance. So within the sports performance specialty is the sports performance seminar. Again, as a reminder, all of our courses, except the comprehensive courses, are now 2 days. So every course is a Saturday and Sunday. We just noticed that, again, we're getting a lot more students from the U.S. now than we ever had before, which is great. We love to see it. But they don't have as much vacation. So the courses being Saturday and Sunday makes a huge impact on them being able to come for the courses, missing less work, not using vacation. So the sports performance seminar is now 2 days.
So the sports performance seminar, of course, that's basically my favorite in the sense that that's how I built my career, training professional athletes in team sports. So a side note, that course is biased to team sports athletes because it's the nature of the training modalities we're using for this course. But what's good about this course now with the modifications we made to make it fit 2 days is now it's geared more towards your typical shorter 12 to 16 week off season that the majority of you are dealing with. So in the past, the course basically touched the entire training year, but we realized that a lot of our students weren't in positions where they dealt with their athletes year round. So it made more sense to concentrate on the off season and dig deeper into the periodization and program design aspects of the off season to provide more information, more applicable information to the coach. Now, of course, the assessment component is very important because with sports performance, you absolutely need to assess to drive the training program to lead to the training goal that you're looking for. So we have a battery of tests that we're going to cover in the first day. And in the weight room, we're going to go through the test as well, because you need to not only be able to implement the test, but you need to go through the test to actually know what it feels to put yourself in the shoes of your athlete.
It's so important to be able to properly run through assessments and execute them.
Yes. And also, I've never been a fan of ridiculously extensive testing models where it takes forever to do a bazillion tests, and then you look at the data and you basically use none of that data to program. I like to use tests that gives me the information that I can use right away to write my program to start training tomorrow. And the tests that we use also don't require a bunch of tech. So they're much more accessible to a wide range of people. That was very important for us because the sports performance world right now is veering towards a lot of sports science, which is really cool. There's a lot to learn from sports science, but sometimes it becomes a little too involving and too complicated for the reality of your weight room, and expensive too. Yeah. But at the end of the day, is we're trying to optimize the weight room performance aspect of your athletes. We are not sports coach. We are not speed coach. We are not movement coaches. We are not neuro
priming or something.
Nervous system priming coaches. We're strength and conditioning coach. So we're going to leverage that as much as we can. So it's very weight room dependent. So now we're going to cover the off season. So the SPP and the GPP assessments to guide the GPP, assessments to guide the SPP. Assessments to look at anaerobic power measures to see if the training program is progressing. We're going to touch about like the different specialty techniques and training methods that we will use with our athletes to push a certain goal. Do we have more of a hypertrophy goal for a GPP or more of a strength goal? Do we have a power goal or a relative strength goal for the SPP? And our power goal, is it more like reactive strength dominant or is it more explosive strength dominant? And then depending on the results of the assessments, the training program will look a certain way and we'll use certain training techniques and methods to leverage these outcomes. So like different ways of how to load the mesocycles, different ways of how to load the training session. So all stuff that are super applicable right away to your program design for your off-season training.
Yeah, what I love about this is it comes back to the assessment. Is there is no there's no assessment that is there for no reason. So this 100% will dictate your exercise selection within your program design. So it goes back to what I was saying about the Comprehensive Program Design Seminar, people just going up and writing triceps. Like that is taken out of the question because especially with athletes, you have such a short amount of time to make a huge difference. Every decision you make is huge. Yeah. So every program or every exercise selection, every variable that you're putting in there needs to make sense, needs to correlate to where their weaknesses currently are. And the assessment that we've put together really does just tie it all in the interpretation and how we're going to use that data from that to make our exercise selection. It's that there's just invaluable. Like it's one of those sections of the course that no matter what, this will go with you for the rest of your life. Like you can look at these assessments, do them all, do some of them, add your own in, but you'll look at assessments differently when you see how applicable the information that comes out of this is and how it should influence your program design.
And again, we do have 3 occurrences of that seminar as well, because it is very hard for strength coaches working in the collegiate setting to either get the money, to get the time off to go to a course. So we're hoping, and we kind of strategically placed we did the best that we could with what we had. So hopefully we see a few more collegiate coaches, because over the years we have it slowly increases every year with more collegiate coaches. And obviously it's so hard working in that setting, and it's very different.
Time.
Yeah.
And then let's not forget, we also have the nutrition component of that course as well.
And again, the nutrition is going to be periodized to the quality that we're working in the gym. I mean, nutrient timing is going to be super important in that. And, typically those clients are a little bit more dialed in, so you can really push the envelope on how many hours before or after you consume what macros and this and that. Like you can really dive deep into the nutrition part. And then, of course, the supplements. You have to be careful with the athletes with the supplements. You have to make sure that, you got NSF approved for sport and all that stuff. But you can definitely, play around with, all those things. Hydration is going to be a big
And even
big
with
topic.
them, because we do have a lot of students that work with younger athletes, I think we'll still cover what you need to focus on with those young athletes that maybe don't even know what they should focus on.
And the thing with those athletes is you have the biggest impact when you have them in your face, right? So it's being able to manipulate that nutrition and supplements or whatever around their training, because a lot of kids, they go back home, they don't control what they're eating, so it's their parents. So if you can pack in a lot of punch around the peri-workout stuff, it can have a big impact.
And what's interesting with the peri-workout component in the world of nutrition is in the last 8 years or so, the whole peri-workout timing of nutrients and supplements in general has been kind of downplayed a little bit. But this is often because of a different mindset. Depending on the mindset you have with the peri-workout nutrition, it can have a huge role. If you're only looking at it under the lens of muscle protein synthesis, maybe the timing is not as important. But if you're looking at peri-workout nutrition under the lenses of immune response, recovery response, neuropotentiating components, if you're doing multiple sessions a day, if you're sprinting in the afternoon and on and on and on, at that point, the nutrient timing component becomes way more important. So sometimes, again, context, that to me in the last month, it's one of the most important words coming out of my mouth, because I think that this is what's missing right now, context. People, because we're in an information age, people gather all of the information, but they don't know how to apply it, when to apply it, with who to apply it. So then and I don't want to sound alarmist here, but that sports performance seminar, I want to bring coaches back to normalcy and what's really efficient, what's really bang for your buck, because the athlete only has limited time to train, especially to spend time in the weight room. If your hour in the weight room is doing a bunch of bullshit that has zero carry over to performance, you're missing the point. So how can we bring strength coaches back to dealing with the bigger picture components of strength and conditioning and stop wasting time on bullshit that won't do anything for your athlete?
Let's go.
Tell us how you feel.
I mean, I didn't want to sound alarmist.
Okay, so that covers all of the live seminars for 2025. As a reminder, all of these seminars are 2 days. The comprehensive seminar is 1 day each, but together they make 2 days. All of our courses are accredited by NASM and the NSCA, so you can earn your CEUs through us as well. Beyond that, it is early bird enrollment, everybody's favorite time of the year. So every year we release our schedule in August for the next year's registration. So now is your chance to enroll and save. So it is actually $500 off all of the seminars during early bird enrollment. Early bird enrollment is usually through Black Friday. So that's kind of the last weekend we run it. And then it's off.
Don't email 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later.
We give you plenty of time to enroll, so secure your spots now, and we want to see you. We look forward to hosting you in 2025 for our continuing education. But before we wrap up this episode, we do have one final event we are introducing onto our schedule the first time in October this year, but we do have 2 occurrences of it next year as well, and that is the Strength Assessment Workshop, which we refer to as OTAs for all of our online personalized programming clients on the roster. So this is an opportunity for anyone, even if you're not a coach, if you're just an avid trainee, to come to Kilo, get assessed by the crew, and gain insights into how to optimally further individualize your own training. So, Steph, if you wanted to kind of give a quick little breakdown of the OTAs.
Yeah, so we'll be going through assessments, so different assessments like eccentric tolerance and like torso strength endurance, and we're going to look at certain strength ratios, especially remedial exercise strength ratios, and a bunch of other tests, but that are relevant for most trainees to help guide your programming. And then on top of it, we will have training sessions in the weight room, which will help us also like kind of like gauge your training quality, your movement quality, your training output.
Yeah, load selection.
Are you training hard enough or too hard?
So
maybe
be ready to take in positive criticism.
And then we'll also have like discussions. We'll talk about like
nutrition optimization.
Yeah, proper warm-up procedures, training load management, performance supplementation, some Q&As as well. So it's 2 days, and it's more of a relaxed environment. It's more about you as a trainee and us as coaches providing you tools to better guide your own training.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's just we've had so many people in the past reach out to us and just say they want to come to Kilo to train even. Yeah. And this is one of those opportunities where you can come, you train, you can walk away with so much more than just training because you're getting assessed, and I think it'll be a really fun
it's a way to
weekend.
Make your vacation like tax deductible.
Again, though, I do want to clarify that this is not a seminar. This is a workshop. So as we covered, we're doing assessments, we're having high-level discussions. You're going to get coached by us, but it's not us sitting in the classroom for lectures on theory, just to specify. Okay. As we said, we are super excited for 2025. All of these courses are hosted at our facility here in Southern Florida. We're sitting in an office right now, which you get to see when you come to see us. On learnkilo.com is where you can find course outlines, frequently asked questions, the whole overview of the entire schedule. Regarding early bird enrollment, you can pay in full because some people, they need to, for tax purposes, spend the money this year. So you can do that. We have 50% deposits. Final payment is due 45 days prior to the scheduled course date. And we also offer 6-month payment plans. So for those of you, there are plenty of options to make it work for you. We hope to see so many familiar faces and so many new faces. I think that's been so cool for us since we moved here. We do see a lot of new people that are just getting introduced to Kilo, and hopefully this podcast is reaching some of those new listeners. And live education is not dead, and it is it's
so good.
It's so different. It's such a fun experience for us to be able to meet you. You're going to gain so much more knowledge. We know some of you out there listening will only ever do our online courses, and you are missing out on so much quality information and nuanced information, and just the ability to meet other coaches, make connections. We've had people come from Belgium. Belgium is a big lover of Kilo, which is fucking amazing. We love it. But we've had coaches that come from somewhere like Belgium, don't know each other, come to a course together, arrive in Florida, and now they have coaches back home.
We had a coach fly from Mumbai for a 1-day mentorship.
So it's not too far for anybody.
So thank you for tuning again. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe. We do offer group discounts as well for our courses. It does not apply. The biggest discount you could take advantage of on our education is during early bird registration. But if beyond that you miss it, we do offer group discounts. So feel free to reach out to me directly. And we hope to see all of you in 2025. See you next year, fam.